Morning. The first reading we have this morning comes from the book of James. And tradition has it that James was the half-brother of Jesus. Some special things about him was that there are several Jameses that are named in the New Testament, but tradition believes that this is the James who was a half-brother of Jesus who came to faith after seeing Jesus after his resurrection. It's also noted that he was quite a man of prayer, that he prayed so much that, thank you, sir, that he prayed so much that he had knees like a camel because they were worn out from being down on his knees so much. And tradition says that when they wanted to kill him, they were going to throw him off a building. And they threw him off the building, but when he hit the ground, he didn't die. Instead, he was praying for his attackers while they beat him to death. So he's quite a man of prayer. And this morning, there's a section that we're going to read from James that talks to us about facing temptations and the temptations that we all face, which we're all familiar with. But even Jesus faced temptations. But how God's goodness stands in contrast to the temptations that we face. And so we're going to read from the first chapter, beginning at the 12th verse, where it says this: "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. When tempted, no one should say, 'God is tempting me,' for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when, by his own evil desire, he is dragged away and enticed. And then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of all he created. My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteousness and the life that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word that is planted in you, which can save you." Second reading comes from the Gospel of John, the 14th chapter, and we're going to begin with that one at the first verse. I don't know if any of you watched the coronation yesterday or not, but my wife said something to our granddaughter that I thought was kind of poignant. And if you did watch it, you saw that there was not only quite a bit of tradition, but there's quite a bit of majesty that's connected to it, quite a bit of pomp and circumstance, quite a bit of almost obscene when it comes to the material riches that were on display yesterday. And Linnea looked at Lakin and she said, "Honey, look at all this, because this is their celebration to crown a king today. And it doesn't even compare to the crowning that our king is going to have when he returns and the trumpets are blowing. Think of how majestic that's going to be on that day when that happens, compared to this very small thing that we're seeing on TV right now." Beginning of the Gospel of John, chapter 14, talks about those mansions that are prepared for us. The Greek says dwellings, but there's a place for us when we come to see the Father. It says this: "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms, and if it weren't so, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way?" Jesus answered, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." Philip said, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Jesus answered, "Don't you know me, Philip? Even after I've been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Don't you believe that I am in the Father, and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you are not just my own. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Or at least believe on the evidence of the miracles themselves. I tell you the truth. Anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. He will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Son may bring glory to the Father. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. If you love me, you will obey what I command." These are the readings for this morning.
I'd like to invite kids to come down. Good morning, good morning, good morning. There's room here. Come on, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Hip to hip. Hip to hip to hip, hip. Hip to hip to hip to hip. Make room. There's a spot. Squeeze them down. You can do it. You can do it. There you go. Pull them on your lap. There we go. Good job. All right. I need a really strong person today. Well, I'll think about it. It can be a guy or a girl, but they got to be really strong because it's going to be a hard thing. It's not going to be nice or easy. It's just going to be hard. I'm going to tell you a true story. Across the ocean is a country called Britain, or England, sometimes called England. And they were in what we call the Second World War. And Germany was sending missiles over their big city. It'd be like someone dropping bombs on Pewaukee, or where you live. And in the middle of the night, they'd hear kind of a whistle, and the house next to theirs might blow up or catch on fire. And people they know would maybe be dead. Or sometimes they had nothing else to do, but they found out there was going to be a bombing. They would bring the big airplanes over and bomb this city. And when they would bomb them, they'd send all the kids and all the families into the underground, kind of like the subways, but it's kind of a deep, deep underground tunnel, so deep that only the biggest of bombs could destroy the tunnel. And that's the way many little kids grew up, and many people at that time had to live with that. And that went on for year after year after year. They had a man in charge of them named Winston Churchill, and he gave a very famous speech at the time. And he used the words, this is what was part of the speech. He said to them, "We will fight them in every possible place we can. We won't let them take our families or our home." And then he said this, "And we will never, never, never give up." All right? Anyone ready? Because I got a hard job. It's going to be work, muscles, going to tire you out. Oh, you got a few less brave? We want to have a girl and a guy up here? You're volunteering him? Come on up. I'll take a girl. You sure?
Yeah.
You sure?
I want to do it.
Well, come on up. No, just him. Yep. Do you know what a push-up is? Who else knows what a push-up is? You can do a push-up? You're not sure if you want to, though, because I'm going to work you hard. This is not nice. You want to trade? Pick somebody else to go up then.
No.
All right, you're up.
No.
No, he said he would.
No, you're
Get down. All right. Keep doing push-ups. I'll let you know when I feel like you're done. I want to talk about something that's in the sermon. Can we bring someone else with a push-up here? Come on down. You can show them. Put your legs that way so that your dress is fine. Wait, get all the way there. Atta girl. You want to try it up too? Oh, look at all these quitters. Keep doing it. I'm not quitting. No, do it. Start. Just don't talk. Just do your push-ups. Look at that girl go. Someone count for her. I should have gone numbers. No, you don't just wiggle your butt up and down. Keep going, you're doing good. All right. In our sermon today, we're going to be talking about never giving up, hanging in. Did you notice they're getting tired? Did you notice that some of you didn't even want to start once you found out what it was?
Come on, Levi, stand up.
Yeah, if you've quit, you can quit. You can go sit down now. You quit doing your push-ups. Go sit down.
I quit.
Quit, go on, go on. No, you quit. You're done. You're done. Come on, go over there.
Never.
Don't quit, honey. Got two of you going. Keep going. Never give up. Oh, try again. That's right, try again. You can get one more out of yourself. Good, one more. Atta girl, one more. All right, both you girls, come on over here. Come on. You guys get to sit down. Come over here, girls. Hang on, one on each side of me. Here we go. Did you see these girls not give up? Wasn't that cool? Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll have to get the camera and the staging up here eventually, so well done, both of you. I got something for you, but I haven't given it to you yet, but I'll give it to you near the end of this little children's sermon, okay? Can you both wait that long? I'm sorry if they're damaged, parents. And their muscles will be sore tomorrow, but compliment them in spite of it. All right? You're right? Right. Well, let me show you your reward. You ready for this? You ready for this? Because you didn't give up. Take your mom out for lunch. Take your dad and mom out for lunch. Come on. Turn around. You know how to behave. Now, Jesus said, when things get really tough, because some of you were getting tired, weren't you? And I kept saying, keep going, keep doing. Some of your arms were getting sore, weren't they? But did you give up? Almost, right? That's what the sermon is about. Never give up. Because God has some wonderful things for you. And you never know when finally God will say, you're done, stand up, you win. That's what the sermon's about. Can you remember that for me? We'll be talking about it. And that's when sometimes even parents want to give up because it's hard. Life can be very hard on us. People aren't always nice to us. Sometimes things are very difficult for us to get done. And yet I want you to remember, God's got a treasure for you, 1 billion times more important than the one I gave you, but a treasure for you that I want you to be aware of. Can you remember that for me? Good. I guess, wow, we only got five, well, we got a few there. Here we go. We'll let the ladies go first.
No.
You might have to move, though. You got to move. Got to move. Move. Here we go. Thank you for volunteering. Ladies first. Take your time, but hurry up. That way most of us talk conflicting things. We're ready to go in another half hour, you leave, right? You're welcome. You're welcome. We'll see you. You're welcome. And Paul, did you grab my notes? Do you have my notes with you? It's all right. I'll preach anyway. Okay. I lost it then. Gee whiz. God must have something good planned instead of what I worked on. And I like that. That's good. Persevere is the word I was trying to teach the kids eventually. Never, never, never give up. Persevere. It means I won't quit. Well, I'm tired. I won't quit. I'm not sure I can do this. Won't quit, or better yet, I'll even try it even if I'm not so sure I can do it. Persevere, which is what's going on in this particular text in James. There's like 4 little proverbial sections out of this section in James, and I want you to be alert to it if you can, because each one carries with it some great insights about what it's going to take for you to survive life, the world, and circumstances. That's a teacher mode. Did you see that? I'm a teacher. Gotcha. It's a teacher thing. You're just going to have to go, what's he talking about? And then you'll be distracted. And then I talk soft and then everything else. The thing that you have to understand in terms of this passage in James that we're going to be working through, it says this: you have to persevere under the trials. And a trial can come for a different person in a different situation. It's not like this singular trial that Jesus is addressing here. It includes all the circumstances that put pressure on us in life. And some of them are the grieving and the sadness of someone we love getting sick, or the death of a loved one, or some other circumstance like that where we seem to understand that's a real trial. But sometimes it's just surviving, making it through one more day, having and dealing with a child that doesn't quite see life your way, or thinks they've got a great plan for their life, and they're not listening to God at all. And you know they're not listening to God, but you can't figure a way to break into their world. Those become trials. And so at this point, one of the wisdom points that James is making for us is the idea of learn what it means to persevere. I thought about $5 a piece. I wasn't sure they'd remember that when they were old. I figured $20 would help them remember it. So make them take you out for ice cream or something. But the idea, of course, was to understand that God has a reward when you don't quit. There's something in that, because they had no idea how long I was going to make them continue to do the push-ups. They had no idea how much more I was going to expect of them. And when they're exhausted and they're finally just laying there ready to give up, and I had to encourage them, that was just fine with me too. But they then had to get back down and try to do the next push-up, the next thing that I was expecting of them, whether they were exhausted or not. And if you saw them up here, which most of you couldn't see, I should have kicked that camera on or something. But you understand the dilemma was that they had to keep trying. They had to keep pressing into it, pressing forward. And that becomes part of the challenge of this particular text, because it goes, the one who perseveres does not give up under trial. It goes, he will stand the test. And it goes on, he said, he will receive the crown of life, in this case $20, that God has promised to them who love him. I warned them. I asked them, are you sure you want to come up? They saw what we were doing. They still, in many cases, chose. Some of them just went down a couple of times. The trouble with the beginning of a trial is we really don't know how long it's going to last. That's part of the dilemma of it. It's part of, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep giving. You have to keep getting the next push-up. Even though God has not made clear if it's going to be a day, a month, a week, or a year, however it breaks down, God keeps saying, push, do it again, do it again. And you begin to understand what he's trying to teach us in this very simple context. But it goes, God has got this in his hands. I was totally aware of watching them do their push-ups. I wasn't blinded or ignorant of what they were trying to do. I was fully aware of the reward I was going to give them. And in the middle of it all, even though they were being pushed hard and their muscles may be sore tomorrow, they understood that persevering allowed them to receive that very thing that I wanted to give them in the first place. I had 5 20s, by the way. I wasn't sure how many would win, and I was prepared for about anything. But the point, well, maybe not 6, but 5. But you begin to understand, in terms of God's mercy, love, and grace, there is an invitation. Don't quit. I have heard Winston Churchill's speech, and I can't talk with a British accent, but it's always been one of those guy speeches where you kind of go, you know, we're going to take them on. We're not going to give up. We'll never, never, never. And you can imagine your coach, the leader of the team, the president, the individual in charge of your country, however it all sets itself up, looking at you going, you don't quit. You get back up again. And I remember that process so many times in many sports events and many things I was involved in, and also in life. One of the challenges I've had to deal with, and I know you've had to deal with too, is life does not come at you in the ways that you anticipated it coming. Sometimes you got to keep pushing right into the middle of it. And even though the rest of the people seem to be going off the deep end, you've got to walk with integrity, you've got to walk with faithfulness, and you've got to honor God with your thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And that is not easy. It's as exhausting as how many more push-ups is the pastor going to make me do? And so you begin to recognize here in this context, we get the first flavor of what God is trying to accomplish through James. If you persevere and you don't quit, you'll pass the test. The neat thing about tests is that in most cases, when God gives you a test, he wants you to pass it. He knows you're capable of passing it. You may not want it. I never look forward to any tests, did you? Okay, unless maybe test this pie compared to that pie. Those were pretty good tests, but nothing where you actually had to push and sit up, and those were all hard. And so in the middle of this, God steps in and says, I want to move you to the next level. I want you to understand you're ready for the next thing. You're going to be part of the solution for the next event. Some of you have stood the test over and over and over again, and you function at a different level than the one who's brand new, taking on a test or a trial for the first time. You have learned how to trust in God. You have learned how to never give up. You have learned, and it is not just thought. You know, oh boy, I would sure, stand up if someone would invade my home or do this to my wife or family or children or something. You get all kind of protective and everything else. And then you find out in the very situation when you get pressed, you turn into a wimp. Well, I just was scared. I thought they were going to. And I go, that's the thing that you have to be aware of. Why do I get tested? Why do people train over and over and over again? And like I said, once you've trained for an event over and over again, like when I was a lifeguard, they'd throw you in the water and 2 big guys would come at you, and you weren't sure who was going to grab you and try to drown you. But you had to be prepared to deal with them. And I go, that was scary. But it was a test they wanted me to pass so that I could prove I would be able to survive even if I had to go and rescue somebody who was going to try and drown me. So the test, although not pleasant and not enjoyable, was part of what I had to go through to demonstrate to myself I was capable of what was happening to me, and I knew how to deal with it. That becomes your challenge, and it becomes your point of victory. Some of you have passed those tests over and over again from the time you were little. Some of you are stuck on one test, and you're stuck there, and God's going, you can do this? Just like I'm going, give me one more. You can do one more. Come on. And they did. They're one more. So in the middle of it, you have to recognize God has not left you or forsaken you. He is encouraging you. He's teaching you this very kind of concept of perseverance. Perseverance means I'll survive, and I am committed to the promises I've made to my marriage, to the promises I've made for my children, to the things I've committed to from the get-go. I am not going to quit. And even though I know what it feels like when you want to quit, I have quit a few times in my life and never looked back at it and said, that turned out great. But in the middle of those circumstances, you learn how to step up, stand your ground, and yet you do it with a humility, because if you understand the very nature of God saying this, I am with you, is part of his promise at that point. 13 goes on with another different concept. When you're tempted, none of you can say, God's tempting me. Well, God must not like me. He's doing this to me. Why has he put this in front of me? You know, it's like, why did God make Bathsheba so pretty? Because when David looked at her, he lost his head. It's Bathsheba's fault. And who made Bathsheba? God did. Therefore, it's really not my problem. Started with Adam. The woman you gave me, you know, what a loser. Look what she did. Yeah, you're right, Adam. You're right. I just made her too beautiful, too smart, and you're just an idiot. You go, is that really? Well, of course it is. It was a test he was meant to pass. And it was a test that he chose to fail because he followed what you might call himself. He put himself on the center of his life, on the center of his focus, and he was staring, what do I want? David said, I want that woman. Adam said, I want what that tree will give me. And in the middle of it, you and I are walking through the temptations that we deal with, and sometimes we just go, you know, God made me this way and I can't help myself. So today I identify as a black Chinese Native American from Tibet. I'd like you to all say hi in those three languages if you could, please. And you understand? They go, what's happening? And the answer is you're going to be putting through trials. Your kids are being put through. I wish kids only had to do push-ups. They got to figure out how to survive the media, how to survive their friends, how to survive the wretch of what comes across on their phones. And then they got to pretend they've got their act together. And that becomes part of the challenge. And so they play with their phones right in church. That was another teacher moment. I'm into teacher mode. Hope you don't mind. I like it. It's called embarrass the heck out of them. The next thing I do is throw them out. I'm not a nice teacher, but I do teach. You understand? How does God get you and I to learn the lessons we got to learn? There are so many distractions. There really are. They'll pull you from right to left. It's like when I asked you last Sunday when I said, how many of you use your phone for scripture, and how many of you will answer your text or email when it comes right in the middle of us? And you answer, you know, and I go, we're all capable of that. That's how powerful the stupid thing is in my life and your life. And so we have to realize what God's trying to communicate. God isn't going to tempt you. If you're tempted, it's going to come from your own sinful nature. There are always temptations around. There's somebody sitting in front of you or behind you that you don't like. There's someone sitting to the right or to the left that you think is good looking. There's someone who said something to you for this morning and you didn't like what they had to say. And you're still bitter about it, and you go, I don't know why I come to this church because that stupid person is there. And whatever else is going on. And you go on and on and on, and so it goes on and says, God is going to tempt you that way. If you're tempted, it's your sinful nature bubbling up to the surface, taking you where it wants to take you, and you're walking with it. Does God love you? Yes. Are you putting your faith and your walk with God at risk? Yes. Can you be tripped up and actually slide down the hill into unbelief? Yes. Or worse yet, watch your life trash in front of you? Like David, after his sin with Bathsheba, eventually becomes a murderer? And eventually the infection of what he was enters his entire family line? Like we don't realize that? God says, do you think I just recorded David for fun? Do you not understand? This is a man after my own heart. I love him that much, but he's an idiot. Look what he does to himself, to his family, to his own children. Look what he justified in his own mind because he had the power to do it. Let's kill Bathsheba's husband. And you go, that's the nature of how wicked my sinful nature and yours can be. And we can't pretend with it. It goes, God doesn't tempt anyone. When you're tempted, it's by your own evil desire, and you're dragged away. It's like it grabs you. If you've ever seen one of the grabs, it pulls you where it wants you to go. It's not It's like, I just lost control. I don't know what happened. And the answer comes back. Scripture called it like that. He said, you don't understand how powerful sinful nature really can be in your life. And he goes on this, and he says, finishes off, after that desire is conceived and starts up, it gives birth to sin, and the sin will eventually destroy you. It causes death. It will not serve you well. Even though in your mind, you're perfectly comfortable. Do I have the power to bring Bathsheba over here? Yes. Do I have the power to have her husband killed? Yes. Do I have the power to just simply enjoy myself? Sure you do. And all of it's outside the will of God. But all of it fit in the rationalization of his mind. And that fool that he was introduced it to all of us. And so you begin to understand, what are you learning? I'm not going to tempt you. If you're tempted, and they had to fire you because of what your behavior was, or some other situation, don't blame me. Blame the fact that you're human. I love you. Let's deal with that. And that's part of where he's taking them in this particular thing. Don't kid yourself, 16 and 17. Don't deceive yourself. This is the third little section. Dear brothers, these are people I love. Every good and perfect gift comes from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights. But he doesn't change. What do you mean? Well, he brought this girl in my life, and she was as loose as she could be, and she put out, and that sound like the will of God, bringing that girl into your life? Oh yeah, that was just the perfect girl for me. And you go, were you in the spirit of the flesh? The answer, I was in the flesh. Were you thinking God is going to compromise himself and drag somebody into your life who's not ready for you, who you might not be ready for? It isn't that God's angry. He's just going, please understand what I'm doing here. I'm not setting things up to tempt you to get divorced. I'm not setting things up to tempt you to get angry. I'm not setting things up. You're going to get angry, and you're going to be bitter, and you're going to be unforgiving, and all these other things. But those characteristics that you're identifying, please understand, are part of my sinful nature. The one that says, this woman you gave to me, it was all her fault. It wasn't my fault, God. Welcome to the spirit of Adam that lives on in Bruce. And so you begin to recognize it in yourself, and he carries it on from there, and it says this, as it goes on, don't be deceived, everything good and perfect comes from God, and he won't change. Verse 18, he chose to give you birth through the word of truth. You're not here an accident, and he doesn't want to lose you. But he doesn't want you to deceive yourself thinking you can get away with doing what drags everybody else down. You're not going to escape. It's going to destroy you. And then he finishes it off with that last point that he makes there. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of everything that God has created. And so you begin to recognize there is this side that becomes a testimony, watching to see if what you were doing is real, trying to recognize. In the movie we saw the other day with Men's Study, there's a scene where a daughter is working with her father, who's gotten filled with the Holy Spirit of God and entered into a ministry for the homeless and feeding them, and has lost a very high-paying job, but has chosen instead to serve these people and God and everything else. His daughter comes along with him, and she's older, college age, give or take, and she can't stand the people. She in particularly hates one young lady about the same age that she is, and her dad looks at her and he says, do you know her name? She says, no, and I don't want to know her name. He said, well, ask her name. I think once she gets to know you. I don't want to get to know her. And finally, her frustration continues to build. She throws the dishes in the sink. She is stomping through the kitchen, and her dad says, I need you to go home. You don't need to be here. And he finally gets her to go home, and she wants to come back after a couple days, and he says, why are you here? I just don't want people to think I'm a fake. I want what I'm doing to be real and sincere. And he goes, it's not working. Do you know what separates you from the fakes? And he uses the term, the love of God. So when you're mowing somebody's lawn, or fixing somebody's windows, or cleaning a toilet, or anything you might be called to do, Are you doing it because you love the Lord and you love the person that you're about to serve? Because that becomes that dividing point. That becomes that example when finally God chose to give me birth. God is giving me this opportunity. Even though it's not exactly what I want right at this point, I begin to understand that my sacrifice and what's going on. Finally, at the father's funeral, a few years later, the young lady who they finally became friends comes to the funeral and said, I thought her father was a fake because I didn't believe in men in general and I didn't believe in God. But when she walked up to me and apologized for the way she had been treating me, and she asked my name and began to be my friend, the girl that was so difficult for the daughter to get to know, finally become close friends, and she's giving testimony. I knew your father was real. And so you begin to understand. God is not trying to get you or trick you to be better. You know, you ought to be ashamed of the way you behave. God's not interested in that. He's calling you into a relationship that feeds and nurtures and empowers you to see life differently. It's, dear Lord, help me to see something different through what I'm going through. And you begin to understand as you finally pass that test. I had one person share that with me. They said, I was really frustrated and hurt and a few other things, but then God began to change my mind, change my heart, and I was stunned by how much that changes life and feelings and emotions. And God's not interested in punishing you or comparing you, compared to me, you guys. He's not doing that. He's interested in bringing you from wherever you are to the kind of person he wants you to be. And finally, at the last part there, he says, listen, my dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, for men's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Do you understand? The whole message is not being nicer. Why aren't you nice enough? You're such an interesting congregation, but you're not nice. Why can't you love each other more? It's not the message. It's what you're missing out of. It's when the Spirit of God is not fully released or given freedom in your life to work and speak through your words and actions and thoughts that your face never changes. Everybody knows what goes on in your heart and sees the bitterness and the hidden unreasonableness and everything. It's all exposed to the world. And you're missing what God is trying to produce in you and then through you to the rest of the world. And so be encouraged. This is not a text, like I said, that is designed to make you feel guilty and walk away going, I got to try harder and be nicer. It's designed to help you love God more. I loved David. He was an adulterer. He was a murderer. I loved David. He brought wretch into his family. I loved David. I still call him a man after my own heart. That is not God joking with you. That's God telling you how he feels toward you, even in the middle of your struggle. His heart is to pull you, encourage you, empty the junk out, bring life and purpose and meaning every recessed part so that you can be understanding, I want to survive this trial, and the way I can survive this trial is with the help of God, and I will never, never, never give up. Pray with me if you would. Lord, in you is life, hope, purpose, meaning. In you is all the goodness that you have for us. Come and bless us, Lord, and just stir within us your grace and encouragement. I pray, Father, for your love to fill our hearts. I pray, Father, that we would hear that gentle invitation that there's more for you, my child. There's so much more I want to pour into you. So much more wisdom and discernment. So many more things that will be valuable in your life that you have yet to learn and know. I want to help you pass the tests. I want to help you be successful. And I want my blessing to be on you in every way. In your name, Lord, we pray this.